Hello, everybody, and welcome to Uncle Silver Gaming. This is really the Silver Lining. We normally do a show called the Silver Lining, but this is just a sort of off-the-cuff riff that I wanted to do. A few days ago, from the time of this recording, Mike Matei, who is affiliated with the Cinemassacre channel, he's friends with James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd. He posted a tweet about using the rewind feature in retro games, in specifically the retro mini consoles, the NES and SNES Mini. I believe the Genesis has it too, and I think there's a couple others that offer some sort of rewind feature. He posted this tweet, and I'm going to read the tweet here. It says, retweet if you agree. If you use the rewind feature that's now standard on many NES and SNES games available on Switch, you did not by any stretch of the imagination beat the goddamn game. That feature is also on the Switch, which is what he was referring to here. I have a few problems with this tweet. I have a problem with the message itself, and I also have a bit of a problem with the tone of the tweet. And I think the tone of the tweet is really my biggest concern here. My issue with the tone of the tweet is, by any stretch of the imagination, beat the goddamn game. And it's just a very hostile sort of tone that comes across very, very strongly like gatekeeping. And that's what I don't like. I don't like this attitude that games have to be played and completed and experienced the way I did when I was a kid, the way I do now. And if you do not experience it the same way, you are not beating the game. And he's saying that in a hostile way, and I don't like that sort of tone. We as gamers, unfortunately, our culture is inundated with the notion of angry gamers, you know, and it due in no small part, honestly, to people like James Rolfe, the Francis character from Boogie 2988. You know, there's this idea that the gamers are angry all the time, and it does not help when people start saying things like, play the games the way I tell you to play them, or you're playing them wrong. And I don't like that. That's a sort of bad take. But that's my biggest issue with the tone of the tweet. My other issue with the tweet is just the idea that you did not by any stretch of the imagination beat the game. If I went from the beginning of the game through to the end of the game, I beat the game. Whether or not you think that I cheated in some way, whether or not you think that I circumvented some of the challenge, that's up to you if you want to say that, and that's okay. But I mean, the game was beaten. It just wasn't. I mean, by the literal definition of the term, I have beaten the game. I just didn't complete it in the original way. And that's the thing that I actually do agree with on this tweet, is that you did not beat the game the way the developers might have intended you to beat the game, which is, for the most part, a gauntlet of challenges. You know, you need to make this series of jumps and defeat these enemies, and then this series of jumps and find these items, all to get to the ending. You did all of those things, but the intention originally is that you need to do it in some continuous stretch. If you're talking about a run and gun game, you know, they don't have save points in the middle. You're expected to do it in one continuous stretch, and you didn't do that. The thing that makes me disagree with it the most about with this tweet is that you still did it. And here's the thing. It's almost like semantics, but here's the thing. Semantics is probably the wrong word for that. But if this was something about cheat codes, if this was something about using a level skip code, and you went right to the end of the boss, right to the last boss of the game, and then you beat that boss, and then you told people, oh, I beat that game. Well, not really. I mean, you circumvented the entire challenge, and you went and you did something. You know, you went and you beat one boss. When it comes to the rewind feature, you actually have to do everything. The thing that the rewind feature most avoids is, oh, I died and now I have to go do the whole stage over again but I clearly know how to do the whole stage over again. So I'm just avoiding that part where I have to just do all the other stuff over again. So it's not really the same thing. It's not some kind of cheating thing. And I think that that's what's happening a lot in this argument, is that a lot of people are associating Rewind with cheating and stuff. And it's you're still doing everything. You're not doing it in the way that, you know, the developers may have intended. And here's the thing. The developers may not have intended that. A lot of retro games are limited by the hardware. I can't imagine how many games out there require you to do some sort of gauntlet of games like Rygar. If anybody has ever played Rygar on the NES, Rygar has no password system or anything like that. If you turn the game off and turn it back on, you start from the beginning. I would imagine that if those developers tried to make that game nowadays, they would have given you some sort of password or save system. They might have just been limited by the technology. Not unlike Howard Stark in the Avengers. So we don't actually know what the original intention of the developers was, if that's the argument you're going to use. The other argument, of course, is simply, I don't have time. We don't have time to play the games that we did when we were younger, to play them the way that we did. We don't have time to come home from school and then sit there for 6 hours, or wake up on Saturday, watch some cartoons, and play 8 hours of a game. We just don't have that kind of time. So it's totally fine if you want to use something that is obviously still making you play through the game, but is, you know, if you're going to argue against Rewind feature, you're going to argue against save states. You know, anybody that has used a save state will tell you, you could say, oh, well, that's not the way they intended it. Listen, man, I don't got time, man. I got stuff I got to do. Ultimately, it's, and here's the biggest bottom line. This is the bottom line of it all. Who cares? Unless you're talking about somebody who is arrogant about the fact that they beat games. Someone who says, oh, well, I beat every Super Nintendo game there is. And then you find out that they were using rewinds and save states and all kinds of stuff. Then you would look at them and say, wow, you're kind of being arrogant even though you didn't actually do it properly. But really, who is having this argument that anybody really cares? Like, have you ever talked to somebody that said, "Oh, I beat Final Fantasy VI," and you looked at them and said, "Oh yeah, well, let me. How'd you do it? How'd you do it? Give me. I'm gonna need proof. I have a series of questions that I want to ask you about specific parts of the game." Like, nobody does. Who the hell cares? The whole idea of having to say you didn't beat the game. Okay, you win. Fine. I'm not sure we were even having an argument, but all right. And that's sort of it. That's sort of my take on it. I understand what he's trying to say, which is that you did not beat the game in the way they may have originally intended. But A, you don't actually know what their original intentions were. B, you actually did beat the game, and that's sort of the problem. Okay. Oh, forgot to put my phone on silent. You actually did beat the game, so the idea of by any stretch of the imagination, no, by a very large stretch of the imagination, I beat the game. I just didn't do it the way you wanted me to. And honestly, the most annoying part of the tweet was definitely the beat the goddamn game. Like, it just comes off as such a harsh tone for something that ultimately is it doesn't even feel that important. I don't know. I mean, it's important enough that we're talking about it, so I guess that's, you know, it's polarizing, and that's sort of what we're always looking for. We're always like, sometimes it feels like we're always looking for the next thing to argue about, and you know what? This will last until the next thing comes up. thank you everybody for listening to my ramble on this. If you are not familiar with the channel, feel free to go ahead and click follow and check the links down below. Also check out some of the other videos. We stream 3 days a week on Twitch, and then we do a live show, which is we basically like this. It's a little bit more organized chaos, as somebody put it, where we discuss some of the issues of the week. But check the link down below for links to the Twitch and the schedule and everything. And have a good one, and I will see you all next time.